If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you for joining us. I trust and pray that you had a wonderful, blessed, enjoyable Monday holiday. We talk about that probably at 1 o'clock or thereabouts, but I'm honored to start things off with the good friends from the Cayman Enterprise City as we talk about the economic report. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Royal Fidelity Bank and Trust, money at work.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And in the studio, we have the CEO of Cayman Enterprise City, Mr. Charlie Kirkconnell, and on the line, the economist, I think, extraordinaire, certainly one of the best advisors of the Caribbean, and stalwart academically and also practically, Ms. Marla Dukaran. Before we ask Ms. Marla to join us, Charlie, good afternoon to you and welcome. Thanks for sitting with us again this afternoon.
Yeah, a pleasure to be back.
All right.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Your economic report and its impact to the economy, but also the example that it has been, perhaps as we look at diversifying the Cayman economic landscape, but equally positioning us for employment, but also as an example. Maybe, Ms. Marla, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be discussing Cayman Enterprise City.
Well, certainly appreciate it, and for what it's worth, if it's okay to say to be a fan of an economist, there's Milton Friedman and then there are others, but I think those of us that have come to see some of your work and I've had an opportunity to read over the last year in particular much of what you've published, I think that the Caribbean bodes well to have such an intellect.
Thank you very much, and I hope that my work is useful to some people, and that it helps to make a difference. That's really why I do it.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
No, thanks, man. I believe, and I will say this for every day, it's not just that economics is probably my favorite subject ever, but it's something that is so real and impactful that at the end of the day, it should be that subject that from the very first day of school, like you do reading, writing, and arithmetic, economics should just be there as you would anything else, right? So, my cards on the table. If you would, though, would it be okay to ask you as we get into our discussion and set the stage and talk to Charlie, maybe to tell us a little bit about yourself, the work that you do, and especially within the Caribbean, but we'll get into the Cayman perspective at some point. Would that be okay to share with us, our listeners?
Sure. Well, I'm from Trinidad. I live in Barbados. I have been here for, just since 2018. And I pretty much cover, or I should say, from an economic surveillance standpoint, look at almost all the countries in the Caribbean, except for the French. I mean, data is very difficult for many countries, but for the French especially. So. And it's really fascinating to see the similarities, but more so the differences, because so many people from even within the region, but especially outside of the region, think that we are pretty much the same, and we're not. Of course, there are similarities, but there are quite important differences as well, historical differences, cultural differences, and those things matter when it comes to policy making. What will work in Barbados will not necessarily work in Jamaica, will not necessarily work in Cayman. And so that's the first thing that I have a lot of passion about. Just, it's intriguing to see the differences versus the similarities. But I think what really drives me is this belief that I have, this unshaking belief that I have in the potential of this region. I mean, I see countries that have suffered, natural disasters, but also man-made disasters. My country right now is, as far as I'm concerned, going through a man-made disaster. And to see what kinds of policy advice and solutions work, and the ones that don't work, and why don't they work. And it's also intriguing to see what works in some countries, and if you adopt it in others, what results you can have. And I feel like Cayman has always been one of those examples that can show the rest of the region what's possible. Especially as it relates to fiscal prudence, where we kind of have this misconception in our heads that for the economy to grow and for jobs to be created, the government has to spend all of this money. At least it's something that is taught to us in first world macroeconomics, if you will, and it's perpetuated by the politicians who want to spend and who want to by political following, if you will, and support. But it's not the case in the Cayman Islands, and there again demonstrates how this is a misconception and what actually works.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad that through you we'll be able to maybe invite the populace, and in particular the policymakers, to look closely at the economics, not just the socioeconomic impact of decisions or omissions, but also the economics, not the fiscal prudence, but economics, in the sense that there is a cost to everything, least of which, sadly, we ignore the opportunity cost.
Indeed.
If I then could, in that sense, ask the whole notion that in the Cayman context, maybe in the absence of a central bank where there isn't a fiscal monetary policy, given that there is this premise that Cayman's success and reputation, whether it's from the Maritime Registry or whether it's from its appeal internationally, has to do and is embedded in its sort of protection and ties to the UK. In an essence, would that be somewhat of maybe not the most sort of appealing thing for the country, and maybe not the thing that the country has seen that has been successful because of its own prudence, its own ethos, the service and sacrifice of its generations past to position us to where we are? Or is it that maybe we are successful because of our dependency relationship?
I think that in any country, your success or your lack thereof is really due to a confluence of factors. It's never due to any one factor or another, right? Because you will see that there are other countries that are overseas territories that do not have the kind of fiscal results and certainly the socio-economic performance that Cayman has. Okay, so clearly that's not the only factor. Whether it's an important factor, it is possible, and I think that one of the key pillars of Cayman's economic performance and success is its institutional framework and the strength of its institutions. And perhaps we can argue that that oversight from the UK and being an overseas territory is a key factor that drives that institutional strength. So yes, it's a factor, but it's clearly not the only factor that's important, because again, there are other countries that have a similar governance structure, and they do not have a similar socioeconomic story. And
I appreciate it, and I certainly thank you for allowing me to maybe ask such a direct question, and just understanding as I did the way people may draw inferences. But as I listen to you, not just from Trinidad, which I think has a great, to me is just a great nation in of itself, But you're in Barbados, another country that has charted a course where it celebrates this level of literacy and education. So being sort of intertwined with those two nations and then looking at the Cayman story, I think we have much to learn from those examples, and for you to have so publicly championed sort of the Cayman success and sharing that we have this excellently run economy. How, and what sort of allows us to be able to use the relative small size of our population and the geographical size, and then look at our economic sort of impact and the wealth that sort of exists. Is there almost somewhat of a disconnect that we're small in size but mighty in power?
Indeed. And, it's, you talk about Trinidad, and Trinidad is the opposite, if you will, because Trinidad is much larger, about a 1.4 million population, has been producing oil for over 100 years, and is nowhere near in terms of GDP per capita, is nowhere near in terms of socioeconomic performance. And that's because, of course, of the resource curse. It is actually to your detriment to have natural resources in the majority of cases. And, Trinidad could have done so much more. Could have been the Norway or the Singapore of the region, and instead wasted it. Whereas Cayman is not blessed. I remember, who was it that was telling me, a long, long time ago, all we had was turtles and mosquitoes, in Cayman.
We used to feed mosquitoes turtles. And so it just goes to show that, size isn't everything. Again, it's a confluence of factors. Size isn't everything. Being blessed with natural resources isn't everything. But it's about having sound leadership and taking the decisions that you need to take now to ensure the long-term sustainable socioeconomic progress that you want to see for future generations. And it's not easy from a leadership standpoint to take decisions now and make sacrifices now and put frameworks in place now, say 50 years ago when we were building this region, if you will. And to make those kinds of decisions that that we are reaping the benefits of now. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of leadership and political will. And I think that's part of the reason why Cayman is where it is, because it positioned itself in a certain way, especially in the financial services sector. But of course, we have to diversify away from an overdependence on that, and therein lies the importance of Cayman Enterprise City in taking Cayman Islands to the next level. Yeah. I think when we come back from the break, I certainly want to ask Charlie, not only to share with us what's new over at Cayman Enterprise City, but the importance of not only getting an economic impact group report to assess the contribution of Cayman Enterprise City, but to engage in an economist and someone especially like you. As you shared that, I'm quickly drawn to what I believe has been part of our success. Our ancestors talk about making provision. They were willing to sacrifice now in order to have something better, but not just better for them, but more important, better for future generations. And maybe in our discussion, we see the financial, the accounting, sort of the monetary things, but are we paying attention to the economics, which is significantly, as we know, different from the financial implications? So maybe we can meld that into our discussion when we come back from the break, if it's okay.
Sure.
All right, perfect. Please stay tuned, and if you have an opportunity to engage a mind of a lady that is respected and is valued as Ms. Marla, well, you know what? You would be apt to pay attention. So join us after the break.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Things just got a bit hotter on the island. Come in today and order the new spicy Korean subs at Subway. They're sweet, spicy, and especially satisfying. Stop in and try the pulled pork with spicy Korean sauce, or the chicken with spicy Korean sauce. And you can message WhatsApp at 929-4658. Order online or use Let's Eat or the Bento app. The spicy Korean subs at Subway in 2 flavors, extra saucy and extra spicy. Subway, eat fresh.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome, Mike, and thanks for joining us as we welcome our good friends from Cayman Enterprise City, the CEO, Mr. Charlie Kirkconnell, on the line. Charlie would certainly, not disagree with me. It's a genuine honor and not just a privilege, but a great pleasure to speak to the economist, Ms. Marla Tukaran. Ms. Marla, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. If not, tell me now.
I love how you say my last name, Mr. Ebanks.
Oh, well. I'm glad that you're not in my presence now because you may see me blushing. I know.
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it. It's great.
Thank you. I have your voice recorded. That is my voice known here. Yeah, he's fine. That's how it'll ring from now on. No, but it is for me. And if I'm not talking to the school, Charlie and I were just doing a break talking about the wealth of knowledge that we have within the Caribbean region, not just the financial or the natural resources that may have been ignored or exploited, but what we have today. And as a mind like yours, a spirit like yours, that from what I've just read over the last 15, 18 months in particular, has enamored me that we need to appreciate that in this space and in this place and in this time, that we need to seek out that which is so close to hand, but we seem to ignore it.
Well, I mean, one of the things that we want to do with this economic impact report, and by bringing Marla in, I'll kind of start at the beginning. As Marla alluded to, there are a variety of ways that the government can stimulate the economy. One of them, might be direct spending. But in the case of our project, what the government decided to do was to offer concessions through Cayman Enterprise City with a requirement that CEC invest in promoting the jurisdiction, invest in attracting, the businesses of the future, if you will. They are certainly the here and now, actually, as well. But the businesses and the industries of the future to set up a physical presence here and to, create economic activity within the Cayman Islands, just by virtue of them being here and operating from here. One thing I'd like to note is that we've reported annually and publicly on the economic impact of the concessions available to businesses that set up in the SEZ since 2013. We consider it to be very, very important that if we are entrusted with this opportunity to offer concessions and deliver results, that we need to publicly account for it, and that's what we do. Through the years, since like I said, since 2013, we've engaged an independent Cayman-based accounting firm to essentially put together the report based on data that we provide, in part, that we provide to them. But this year, we decided to take it one very significant step further by asking Marla, as a very recognized regional economist, to analyze the socioeconomic impact of our project. And that's why we, including Marla, are here today.
Yeah, man. Well, Charlie, with that, maybe Ms. Marla, we could ask if it is a project of this, I didn't want to say significance, and not even of this nature, but it has an impact in many respects. As an economist, as you've evaluated it, would it be okay to ask you to share with us what you saw, what you think of it, what any things in particular that may have been striking in a sense, and share some of your findings if you would.
Sure. So, one of the most striking things for me, and of course, I'm in love with numbers and always use evidence to justify any of my statements and recommendations and so on. But it's sometimes you can't always boil things down to numbers. And to me, what was the most important effect that I am seeing of Cayman Enterprise City on the wider economy is that of economic diversification, and the diversification that it helps to support and drive. And this is a most powerful and invaluable benefit, and it yields benefits that I think can't adequately be quantified. So, I can't give you the number on what that economic diversification means in terms of dollars and cents, but it's certainly invaluable in terms of building economic resilience. Because what diversification does is it means that, okay, so if my economy is mostly run by tourism and financial services, these are service sectors that rely on face-to-face, a lot of face-to-face, especially in tourism. And as we saw with this pandemic, when that one or two of the major industries that you depend on suffer, everything grinds to a halt. And so it's sort of a risk management strategy to have a diversified economy where not all sectors will be affected the same, and some may benefit whilst another is being negatively affected. And so that kind of economic diversification, I think, is critical to building socioeconomic resilience for the long term, and that is where I think Cayman Enterprise City is most powerful. Now, beyond that, first of all, Cayman Enterprise City is sort of an investment promotion agency which the government does not have to fund. In most countries, in this region and outside of the region, the government actually creates an institution that's an investment promotion agency that they fund and they staff, and they have a subvention in their budget every year to help to drive foreign direct investment, whether in existing industries or whether in diversified sectors. And the government of the Cayman Islands did not have to do this, right? So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is CEC does what it does very well. They were ranked #1 free zone in the Americas in 2020 and #5 globally. So clearly they're doing a great job and fulfilling their mandate. And so that's the other thing that's really, the other two things that's really powerful is that they're driving diversification and they're doing it successfully, and they're not relying on government to do it. And finally, the nature of the sectors that the companies in the special economic zone, the sectors that they're involved in are really high-tech, high-skilled, high-wage sectors. And let's be frank, I mean, there was a study that was done last year across the region that showed that the tourism sector, which is the largest sector in the Caribbean, employs people at wages that are well below the national wage average. So it's a low wage sector, and as much as 1/3 of the labor force in many countries is employed in this low wage sector. And I mean, yes, the tourism sector is important, and I'm not trying to put down the tourism sector, but really, is this what we want for the next 50 years? Tourism took us this far, but I don't know that tourism can take us where we deserve to be in the next generation or two. And so the sectors that the Cayman Enterprise Cities, Special Economic Zone, companies are involved in are things like software development, biotechnology, fintech, medtech, green technology, cybersecurity. These are the kinds of skills that are needed in the future. Needed now, but needed more so in the future. These are the kinds of skills that will attract higher wages and help to drive a more sustainable socioeconomic progress that we have seen historically and take us to the next level.
To improve not only the standard of living, the quality of life, but to fulfillment of all. And as you shared about the past, I think back to the practices of the tourism sector with advertising the jurisdiction. Many times it would seem that the country would spend tens of millions of dollars annually advertising, or the country or the region generally. But when asked, of the private sector, the hotels in particular, to pitch in, there seemed to be a disconnect or an unwillingness. Now CEC is presenting the country through its own projects in a way. I guess the country's song of choice, we must be doing something right, Charlie, if you share that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do operate as a kind of a quasi investment promotion agency, in that we reach out to the world to basically let them know that this is a great place to set up your global business. And the economic impact report will show that over the almost 10 years so far, CEC has spent in almost if you add in what we've spent on the development of our first building, the property and the actual development, we've spent over US $50 million in promoting the Cayman Islands and building out the type of infrastructure that helps to make it the type of place that global businesses, that especially the types that we are targeting, we need Cayman to be the type of place that they can see themselves operating their business from. And it's a very competitive world out there, especially for those types of businesses. And if we're not offering, a top-class product in line with what Cayman expects, then we would be getting nowhere.
Indeed. Well, when we return from this quick short break, maybe we can continue the discussion and talk about the fact that we're in a sort of service-based economy, but the knowledge transfer that can take place. I think Ms. Marla will speak to the notion that it's not just quantifying the dollars and cents. There is a greater impact beyond the financial. So we invite you to stay tuned. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences. Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Everywhere.
Can you hear me now? Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yes, right from your Android or iPhone. Download the Radio Cayman app now on your Android or iOS phone.
The Radio Cayman app
is where you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere you go.
Everywhere we go, we go. Everywhere we go, we go.
Find it in the Google Store, the Apple Store, or use the link at www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Yes, now you can listen to Radio Cayman everywhere.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. I thank you for joining us in the studio as we talk about Cayman Enterprise. Today we have the CEO, Mr. Charlie Kirkconnell, and on the line, the leading economist. Who do we have on the line, Mr. Charlie?
Marla Ducaran.
Miss Marla, you still there?
I can say it too.
He says it well, man. It must be the best way thing,
Well done, guys. Well done.
Yeah, we were rehearsing, We were taking lessons.
We actually were.
We were. This is like a salsa somehow, We were trying to take lessons so that when we come to the dance floor, we don't totally trip up. All right.
Well, you did a great job. All of your practice is paying off.
Yeah, you're a kind man. You must be from Trinidad.
Definitely.
Let me be here before I have to answer for that later. But there's probably very little that excites me more than talking economics, because I think too many times we fail to appreciate how every day, all day long, we are sort of combating economic decisions. We don't see that conflict that we may have between spending time with Peter or with Paul, that it boils down to a decision of economics. Does it not?
Indeed, economics explains everything.
You know what?
It explains why we're here right now having this conversation.
It is. It is, man. I think the more that we embrace that it is a subject of choice, the more we realize that its true intellect lies in the economic study. And with that, as you were sharing with the notion of Cayman Enterprise, we can ease the way in. It says, a project has come online. They've built so many units. They've spent so much money, and it's going to have this amount. We can quantify that much easier, but it doesn't take and paint a true picture of what it is to the country, the cost as well as the contribution, without looking at the economic impact. And Cayman, being a service-based sector, the opportunity for people, say in the technology sector, to come here, and for those who live and work here to be employed, there's a great transfer of knowledge that can take place. So in a knowledge-based economy, having a space like Cayman Enterprise City can bode well for today, and as you said, for generations to come.
Indeed, and I think what you can't place a dollar figure on and a value on is that ecosystem that is created in Cayman Enterprise City, because you've brought all of these players in technology-related sectors and very progressive sectors and sectors that are much more in demand now. And that ecosystem means that there is that level of support and feedback mechanisms. There is, as you say, transfer of knowledge, education, there's internships, and then therefore there is growth and blossoming.
Right.
Unless you have that kind of ecosystem in place, then everybody's in silos, and there's only so much, there's no cross-pollination,
right.
There's no real synergies being derived. And so that's what's really important, I think, as well about Cayman Enterprise City, the fact that it creates this ecosystem. And with respect to your point around the transfer of knowledge, that's actually a missing link. In this region, we've adopted, whether deliberately or by accident, largely an FDI, foreign direct investment driven development strategy, where we don't have a lot of capital locally. So what we do is we invite foreign capital and foreign expertise and private sector players from across the globe to come and set up shop here in our various jurisdictions and operate. Now, the thing about it is, the ironic thing about that kind of development strategy is, unless you have that deliberate local content stipulation and deliberate transfer of knowledge stipulation, then what has happened, and we've experienced it in many countries across the region, is that we expect the transfer of knowledge and the domestic and organic, if you will, benefit spreading throughout the economy. We expect it organic, and that's very slow. It's like a trickle-down process, which is extremely slow, if non-existent. And it really just does not work very well. Whereas what we see in Cayman Enterprise City, there is a huge emphasis on education. As a matter of fact, I think that the education budget and the amount of effort and expenditure that's devoted to education and internships and training and so on is quite significant, if not the most significant of any private entity. So outside of the government, I think this is probably the largest level of spending, or proportion, I should say, of spending of any entity that you will see on education. And so, they are fulfilling a role that really is going to upskill and leverage the effects of foreign direct investment the way no other country, I think, has really done intentionally and deliberately across the region that I can see.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how you harness the benefit. It's not just the capital. You have to transfer the knowledge. And the thing about the capital, if I just might stick that in as well, is that you would find that just when there are problems, just when things get shitty, like the global financial crisis or COVID or any other crisis, that's when the foreign direct investment firms want to pack up shop and leave because they perceive the level of risk to be too high and it's going to put a dent in their profitability. And that's just when your economy can't afford for them to leave. But the way that it's structured in Cayman Enterprise City, you know, they're not just coming here and setting up a business and you know, they're actually becoming part of an ecosystem and a community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like there is more stickiness, if you will, and more commitment to staying and to remaining part of the ecosystem because you thrive in it.
Right. I think that sense of, of a better word, ownership. We always ask people to have a buy-in. You know, you have to have any skin in the game. You want the members of the team to have a buy-in so you can reach a decision that is beneficial. This is where we can see it not just very clearly, but we can see it almost on a daily basis. So Charlie, with that perspective, as we talk about, the foreign direct investment, just direct investment even and the like, but what's some of your vision, your plans, the agenda going forward for CEC?
Well, before I get to that, I'd like to say that there's a tremendous amount of stickiness in our project because I don't have anywhere else to go. So
that makes two of us, right?
Yeah. So and instead of at least in the case of CEC, perhaps we could use the phrase local direct investment.
Yeah.
Because certainly we are attracting businesses set up here, and that is foreign direct investment, but it's tied to a very significant amount of local direct investment. One of the point to make regarding the concessions that are available to companies that set up in the special economic zone, and to kind of continue on Marla's point, it's tied to some very significant obligations on our part to be a great corporate citizen, to work on things like knowledge transfer. And we take our obligations very seriously, and in fact, we exceed them. I will say our obligations certainly, like I said, they are significant, but we exceed them annually. Things like our internship programs, our mentorship programs, our Unitalks program, which is a guest lecturer program that we have with UCCI. We take all of these things very, very seriously because that is those obligations are significant and they're important, and being tied to the concessions, we don't take them lightly, and we're not going to make excuses for we didn't do this because of that, and we didn't do this because of that. We're fully committed to living up to our obligations and even exceeding them. Mm-hmm. So then, to answer your question, the agenda for CEC is more of the same. We are very invested in making the special economic zone a significant driver of the local economy. Mm-hmm. We're very invested in helping to help finally help Cayman achieve some of that economic diversification that will stand us well in things like COVID. And one of the things that I can confirm that has happened, since our borders have opened up, we've probably had the busiest period of our existence. Mm-hmm. And as difficult as that has been for me personally at times, because it is a lot to handle, it shows the wisdom in the government green-lighting our project many, many years ago, because it has created a driver of foreign direct investment at a time when the country really needs it.
Yeah. Well, I commend you, as I have from the early days, and now when I see the vision going forward and the impact, the importance, but also the need for us to be invested heavily as a country. If I can respectfully ask finally of you, Ms. Marla, not just for whatever words of wisdom you would want to impart, but in particular how we as a general populace, from the politician to the policymaker to those who are impacted by all that happens, how we can perhaps play a greater role in supporting not just the development of our technology sector, the Cayman Island Empire City, but to see how this additional layer to our economy is positively impacting us today, but for the future.
That's an important question, and I'm glad you asked that question, Mr. Ebanks, because not many people ask that question. Not what can my government do for me, but what can I do for my country?
Well, Canada
yeah, I think, you know what, it is so important for us, everybody, to realize that the future is not going to be anything like it was, things were in the pre-COVID era. I hear people all the time asking, and they ask me, when do things get back to the way they were in 2019? I think they will never get back to exactly the way they were in 2019.
Right.
So if you think about what happened in 9/11, for example, and how that affected the way airports work, and AML and CFT legislation and regulations, for example, that event changed things in a material way globally until today. I mean, so forever, if you will. And I feel like this sudden stop that we experienced last year and the effects that it has had are only beginning to ripple now. So if things are going to be different, materially different, then we have to change or be willing to change our mindset as to how should we be doing things going forward. We should be doing things differently and or we should be doing different things. And I think that change mindset is very important. I think that as human beings, we want to gravitate to what we know, which was 2019, and 2019 was great. And so we would just like that to come back. But I think it really is not going to come back, not the way that it was exactly. And so we have to be ready for change, we have to embrace change, but we also have to change our minds and our mindset to think about how could I be doing things differently? In other words, how could I be doing things greener? How can I be doing things more sustainably? How can I be doing things that are, more enabled by technology to make and be able to serve my clients in a more efficient and user-friendly manner, etc. And so that's what I think is the most important thing we can do as a people. And, using technology is going to, I think, be a big part of how a successful company versus an unsuccessful company, it's going to differentiate the two. Or a successful human being versus an unsuccessful human being, right? Because everything was forced to go online. And so what I think, though, that the government has to think about doing in order to make sure that we can all capitalize on this shift is we have to fix the digital divide.
Yes.
Because we know that there are people who are not as well connected for various reasons as others. So, for example, those who are disadvantaged economically, and even there is a gender divide as it relates to the digital divide, right? So those are the issues I think we need to address to make sure that there is no inequality as it relates to access. To digital services. And once we address that, which really the policymakers have a significant role in addressing that, then it means we can all equally truly capitalize on this shift that I think has taken place and will continue to accelerate. And that's where I think our input comes in a significant way.
I appreciate sharing that, because as we even look at the infrastructure, whatever investments that the government may do in this roads or telecoms, they need to appreciate that it has to be access equally by as many of us as possible. And maybe at some time in the future, whether you're here in person whenever the world gets to a space where we can travel again, or whether it's remotely via the technological link, we'll have the excellent company of your input and expertise.
Oh, sure, anytime. I mean, there's no need for me to get on a plane and have a conversation anymore. I'm so happy because I realize how ridiculous amount of time that I spent in airports and on planes and eating unpleasant airport food. But of course, anytime I'm in Cayman, I hope to be there at the end of the year for your half marathon. That was my intention last year, but it didn't work out. Let's hope it works out this year for sure. I'll be happy to.
Well, I hope you get to make it then, because they tell me Cayman is not a bad place, and when people like you say it, I kind of maybe gravitate towards it, might be truthful. Huh? So thank you.
Thank you for having me. All
right, Charlie, it was a pleasure, and as we close out, your thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say one last thing is that, as positive as everything that you've heard, which was delightful, obviously, from CEC's point of view, when we first asked Marla if she would, provide some analysis of our annual report, she made it clear that we were going to get a warts and all analysis, or she wasn't going to do it. So we're obviously, like I said, we're delighted with how the analysis has come out, but I want people to understand that this was a warts and all, and there are some things in her analysis that are areas that we need to work on, and we will be working on those. But overall, we're very pleased to have this independent, analysis by one of the most recognized economists in the region, and to add that to our annual report means a lot to us.
Well, I think you bode well by doing that sort of analysis, and that would not be unexpected. Someone of her stature to get all that you've received, warts and all, as you put it. Maybe for future, as you've addressed those issues, we'll come on and say, here was a point, here's how we responded. Charlie, I say this to you publicly and privately. I commend you and your team. Continue to stay the course. It's not easy, but then what to say, the race isn't for who? Okay. Ms. Marla, again, thank you very much, and to Charlie and the good team over at CEC, commend you and continue that you will see great success. It's our listeners. We're going to pause and take a short break, but when we come back, please rejoin us for more Talk Today.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman. We've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Shanda Gallego from Radio Cayman's newsroom. The Parliament Management Council of the House of Parliament met for the first time on Thursday, outlining their new mechanisms for the management and function. 9 members sit on the council, including the House Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, the Premier, and 3 government members appointed by the Premier, as well as the Leader of the Opposition, and 2 members appointed by the Opposition Leader. Turning to international news now, Israel has again closed a major border crossing into Gaza after Palestinian militants fired a barrage of mortars and rockets into southern Israel. 2 people believed to be Thai agricultural workers were killed and 10 were injured on the Israeli side. The crossing had been opened to allow entry to aid lorries from Jordan. A separate convoy entered from Egypt. At least 212 people, including almost 100 women and children, have been killed in Gaza, according to its health ministry. In Israel, 12 people, including 2 children, have been killed, its medical service says. The police officers involved in the April shooting of a black motorist in North Carolina will not face criminal charges over his death. The shooting of Andrew Brown, 42, was justified, the Elizabeth City District Attorney told reporters. Officials say he drove his car at police during the 44-second encounter. Mr. Brown's family disagree with authorities and say he was executed. An independent inquiry found he was shot 5 times, including in the back. His death on April 21st has led to continuing protests against police brutality. And supermodel Naomi Campbell has become the mother of a baby girl. The 50-year-old announced the news on Instagram as she shared a picture of her hand holding the baby's feet. She posted on the social media website, quote, "A beautiful little blessing has been chosen to be her mother. So honored to have this gentle soul in my life." Designer Marc Jacobs was among those to congratulate the London-born model who had not previously revealed that she was to become a mother. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Ray, my good friend, are we ready for another? See what I say?
Yeah, man. The topic this time is Christopher Columbus, his fourth voyage, the one that's supposed to discover us. What do you know about that?
So they said it was Columbus. They said it was the fourth and final voyage, and Columbus sailed the sea.
Keep going, Dwayne.
1503?
Yeah.
Was it May 10th?
That's what they say.
Christopher Columbus, was it him?
Yeah, except it wasn't Christopher Columbus that noted it. It was his young son, Ferdinand. And it wasn't Grand Cayman. It was most likely, or it sounds like, it was the Sister Islands.
Could have been the Sultan Key or the Bakaski?
No, sound like Sister Islands. This Friday, Siwa Sain
is a special feature of Talk Today with contributions from the National Museum, a language, history, and culture show on Radio Cayman 89.9 and 93.9 FM.
He had 3 ships. The Nina.
What were they?
The Pinta and the Santa Maria.
Yeah, except it wasn't them that he was on.
Oh, he was on a donkey? A raft?
Join us Friday and we'll tell you.
See what I say.
See what I say.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us as we invite you to be a part of our discussion here on Talk Today. So I'm open line until 1:30. 8949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. You can send a WhatsApp if you want, 925-3261. Would you want to share with us what you did, for your weekend? Some worked, as one or two of my friends shared, even more than they had planned. Some found it to be very positive and productive. They got much done around the place, as they put it. The house needed a little bit of attention. They were able to maybe even service the boat engine or take it out, for a spin. Others were busily trying to get, their financials for the year end, get all of their reports done, and a feeling that they would be constantly overwhelmed and angst with all that we sort of place upon ourselves and the pressures of our careers. But maybe you had an opportunity to share. If I could, I don't necessarily always talk about what I do and where I do it, but if I might, I was really honored, and I thank my very good friend, Nobi, for inviting me to spend some time with him, and to Graham Rankin, listen to us. Nobi's cook dinner, boy, it ranks up with the best, boy. So I think, Graham, you're gonna have to come better, man. And I say that hopefully to engage with a little bit of rivalry and to remind ourselves that it wasn't that long ago that it came on, especially on Sundays, that we sat and through breaking bread, that fun food and fellowship, the family came together and we shared a process. Some, no question, we would attend the church service. Food was on before we went. It was an engaged day where the family came together, and the preparation of the meal was part of that fellowship, that exchange, that interaction, and engaging each other. It was a lot of work, but it was fun. It was work that was appreciated. It was food that was valued, and it was relationships that was cemented. And it was through that the family remained connected. And I think it's something that we need to look to. Maybe last year, and as horrible as it is, as egregious and offended that we may have been, as difficult and challenging, not just the economic impact, but the personal loss. none of that will be dismissed nor denied. But maybe it reminded us of the importance of taking time, of appreciating the relationships that we have or had, the importance of continually nurturing those relationships, the fears, the expectations, the anxieties, the seemingly sometimes sense of being unfulfilled at times. Maybe that will propel us to value more not only others, but value ourselves. Not to be narcissistic and self-serving and selfish, but to appreciate that we need to give more of ourselves. And if each and every single one of us would give as much as we can, then everybody will have. Think of it. We as parents will sacrifice significantly for our children's success, for their safety, and for their security. Our parents did it for us, and we do it for our children. And hopefully they do it for theirs. But there's also an appreciation from the offspring's perspective, from the child's perspective, that they should receive that, but equally give. Not only give to their parents as they age and get older and may need assistance, but they give. So there's a society of givers as opposed to one of takers. And when we see that the taking, becomes that thing which is not the norm, then it should be corrected and chastised and dealt with. But when we accept that those offensive behaviors, what we say, they're par for the course, they're the price of success and prosperity, but they don't have to be. And they should not be. And they should not be condoned. So I go back to, a wonderful time of fellowship with Nobu, especially on Sunday. It was amazing. And I will say that to maybe encourage more of us. If nothing else, look at what last year, how it impacted us. And as we spoke to Miss Marla earlier, look at the fact that going forward, the world has forever changed. We have probably in many cases forgot what travel was like, 20 years ago. Have we talked to our parents and asked them what travel was like in their era? Not only the fact that they dressed up to go on the plane, but the process of traveling was different. We've been told and we've allowed to believe that, for security measures, you need to travel almost naked. You need to get, an x-ray every time you go through, because the world is this big, bad, dangerous place. Well, it is probably because of the politicians. It probably is because of the way we set about treating each other. We magnify and emphasize our differences because of our skin, our economics, our ethnicity, and the like. But we also don't allow the good in people to shine because we ourselves are unwilling to show the good in ourselves. It's not naive. It's not even an attempt to be noble. It's the fact that, go back to, I say economics is truly the subject of choice and the one that should be, for every single student. Not that we get into the quantitative part of economics, but we can look at the qualitative part. She said, in reference to Trinidad, it could have been the Norway or the Singapore. Well, if we're not sure exactly what she means by that, have a think of it. Maybe use that thing that is overused and really sometimes, how can I put this nicely, isn't really valued as much as we think it is. But go online and search and see, and maybe find credible, reputable information and see if there's not something there. But just because you type it into a search engine and it pops up, is necessarily meaningful. But nonetheless, check it out and be discerning. Let's pause though and take a short break as we invite you to call us at 949-8037, 949-6990, or 1-800-534-8255 is a floor toll-free call as we invite you to be a part of a discussion. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Julia Ann Ruddy, 1877 to 1942. Julia Ann Ruddy, née Lazari, was married to Henry Watson Ruddy, ISO, with whom she had 3 children. She served as a nurse and midwife on Cayman Brac for many years. She rode a bicycle between her home in Stake Bay and whatever part of the island the mother-to-be lived in. She was sometimes assisted by her husband, the only dispenser doctor on the Brac. She was a very kind and compassionate woman who reached out to the less fortunate, helping them, sharing with them, and caring for them during illness. She was loved by all.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Freedom, Cayman Brac. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
At Subway, we know a meal isn't quite complete without a side, and that's why we're introducing waffle fries. Subway's waffle fries are oven-baked softness with extra crispy edge, giving a satisfying taste to be enjoyed as is or in any of Subway's dipping sauces. Order waffle fries as a side item for $2 or make it a meal deal. Subway, eat fresh.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back and thanks for joining us. It's a Tuesday edition of Talk Today as we invite you. I know many of us had a wonderful long holiday weekend. Perhaps you went over to the Brac or Little Cayman. Maybe you were just up East End at one of the properties. Maybe you were spending time with family and friends, inviting them as you host them in your homes. And let's ask ourselves, what is it we value more? Do we want more money in the bank and greater wealth, or do we want more time? And when we have more time, would we want that to be spent? And how would we want it to be spent? And where? And perhaps as we look at the Cayman landscape, maybe we're asking ourselves, well, what if? And we'll think very long and hard about the response that we give ourselves. If we look at Cayman now, and we realize that we have 140 plus nationalities, almost from every walk of life, every possible place and space, there's somebody here. And as we engage them and talk to them respectfully, or responsibly, and genuinely engage, we can find that we can learn so much. And even when there's a language barrier, we can still communicate. We can still, commune, as it were, and we can still cement very, very loving, lasting relationships. But we also should realize that there are many things that could and should unify us. That despite our differences, we are more alike. And if we were to limit our discussion to economics and politics, we see how we are so connected. In today, we realize that just in Trinidad, as it is in other parts, there are significant challenges to the economy, but also to the society. This thing that we're enduring now isn't just a public health crisis as being championed by politicians and other would-be despots and the like, but it's also an economic crisis. Many people have lost everything with no prospect of ever regaining anything. Many people are very fearful of the increasing cost of living, not just in Cayman, but globally. The supply and availability of materials, from medicines to their building materials, to the products that they have found to be convenient and have become accustomed to. We've probably changed the brand of toilet paper and washing liquid for our dishes and for our clothes. Perhaps we have made many adjustments in our lifestyle because that thing that we became accustomed to no longer available, or isn't available as frequently as it was that we were accustomed to, or maybe, but it's at an increased price, and we are at a reduced income level, so those salaries now have to be shared, much more consciously amongst the competing choices that we have to face. Again, the impact of the economics in our daily lives. But then, what if at some point in time, a government of the day, let's say in the Cayman context, decides that for the greater good, the public health aspect of it, we need to impose greater restrictions. We need to require everybody to wear a mask. We need to limit the movements. We thought that may have been unprecedented. It could never be expected in a democratic free world. But were we not there last year? Are we not there still in many countries? Look at Trinidad again. And if it was to come about, well, how would we respond? And how willingly and civilly would we? Now, the success of the Cayman sort of story, I think, lies in its people. The resolve, the resilience, and the respect that we have. The notion that many of us have grown up with our parents and recognizing that they followed the example of their parents, who followed the example of their parents, that said, you make provision, you willingly sacrifice now in order to have something later. In today's world, we're all about immediate gratification, about self-pleasure. Let's get it now because it's good for the individual. What if our parents and their parents and their parents' parents had that same mindset, mentality, and acted in that way? Would we be where we are to the extent that we are? Not only do we see that, but we also see how civil we are in our engagement. Well, can we now, more than ever, take that to where it should go and extend it to each and everyone? And to say to governments, whether it's the police or the politician, that there needs to be a level of respect and a desire to lead by example. Just because, you walk with a big stick doesn't mean that you necessarily should be wielding it. In fact, maybe that stick should be taken from you, whether it's a physical stick or a gun or some check, and including the pen. Let's go to the phones though. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling. Good afternoon. All right, 949. Hey, good afternoon. There you are.
Hi, Sterling.
How are you today?
Good. You gonna take my stick from me?
Sometimes I think we should, In fact, we should not only take it from some people, but maybe we should give it to somebody else and say, how do you feel like it now? But just a thought, huh? What do you think?
Yes. Yeah, just a thought. Yeah, leave it alone.
I don't know.
I was listening to the lady there talking. And I was interested in some of the things she was saying in regards to the Cayman Island comparing to some parts of the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
But I said that to say this. Sterling, Bordentown is our first capital.
Mm-hmm.
And Sterling, I did a little grand tour through there this weekend.
Yeah.
And I know people is living there. I know it's a district and so forth. And it's human beings living there. So I'm not here to disrespect anyone.
Right. Understand that.
I hope no one takes it for the content.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so hurt and disappointed to see the condition that the first capital is in at this age of 2000. What are we in 2021?
Let me check because last year was a long century.
Yeah, 2021 we in, and I'm so disappointed. The way that and they say this the fastest growing district right now is Bordentown, and all of the MLAs that been running for that district from time to time, and up until just recently, and whoever's in now for that area, I know they just got in. I'm not looking at miracles overnight, but it's heartbreaking to see the condition that the capital is in, the very first capital of Bordentown. I'm not gonna go in details because I think I might get shoot down.
Mm-hmm.
But I just asked our politicians to go and do a grand tour through Bordentown, take all the little small roads and drive in and see how our people's living.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really healthy and so forth. And I say that to say this, that we got rules and regulation here in this island, Sterling, to try to accommodate people, to try to protect people. And when you see how the people are not using the pedestrian crossing, and if they do use it, a car is coming and will not stop to let that individual continue to do that pedestrian crossing. And then when you look at people parking up on the sidewalk that is supposed to be walked on, not a car or a truck or whatever the case may be, park up on that sidewalk. And where are the police officers to see that these things is happening and are giving these people a warning or a ticket or something in that category? We are going around putting all these spikes down here and there. We got them all down by the hotels, which I don't think is right, because in whatever property is in front of that hotel to the main road, that's supposed to be a part of the public access on the road to be walking or driving on. But all because people are going to the side roads to go to the beach, they're putting out these spikes that people can't park in front of their condos. I think that's a big slap in our face, knowing that we can't enter the beach properly no more, and we can't see the beach no more from on the road, period. You know? And when you had a lady call in that they used about using the government vehicles and so forth. I knew who that lady was afterwards, so I met her a couple of days ago. But to get back to what she was saying and seeing how the police cars are being used for personal use, for family, it's not right. It is not fair to be using the public, the police vehicles to take family member, and I know for a fact, so it shouldn't be abused. It should not be abused. And the thing with came on, you give a term and an inch, they takes a yard. And nobody is trying to abide by our rules and regulations. We have them piled up on the shelves in wherever, the courts or archive or wherever they may be piled up, and they're not being implemented on this island. So the state is now, come to the Cayman Islands. They don't hold you down here for anything. They slap you on the wrist and send you back on the plane. You know, that's not a good sign for the Cayman Islands. So I just want to say, Sterling, we got a security system, big old huge building in town here, and they are used in both sides of the road. And I know when Planning knew they was going to build that building, they didn't have sufficient parking, but yet they let them put such a big building down. Now all of the cars, the majority of cars are parked on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. You want to go to the education department, you can't even get in there. It is ridiculous. Why are we giving some people so much blight, and a little poor man like me is going to get a ticket because I was speeding, or I went park on the sidewalk. My other cars didn't park on the sidewalk, and they're not getting caught. Which, by the way, I never got a ticket for parking on the sidewalk, guys.
Yeah, but you see, that's the thing now. We need to look at Cayman and perhaps appreciate and value, not just what it is, but what it is taken to get us here, and what is now required to not just make it better, not just keep it, the scene, but to show respect for what it is. And when we think of all that is happening, from the way we throw our garbage, on the roads, to the way we drive on the roads, to the way we sort of cut, in the queue, I think we need to move that, man.
Yes. I think you mentioned garbage. Let me tell you what happened. Last week, the garbage truck, they comes in there around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I just hope they cut that out, because it is very disturbing when you're trying to sleep and the truck is coming through. Last week, they didn't pick up all of my garbage out of my bins. I got a brand new garbage bin. I got it cut halfway down to be able to access the garbage bins a lot easier. And my garbage bins are not heavy. They're not piling no garbage. And anyhow, when they came last week, they reached their hand in and took out what they wanted to took out. When I came out in the morning, 6 o'clock, there was one of my bags in the road. I said, okay. So when it wasn't anything much in it. So when I came back from school, I picked it up in my garbage bin. And whoever they're listening, they can listen real good. I called environmental health. I told them that my garbage not being collected the way it should be collected. So they contacted me back and talked to me, and it was very nice and understanding and so forth. So come to find out, it was two different set of guys that was coming in my neighborhood every week. There's a new set of guys coming out. They're taking turns. So I told the individual I spoke to, I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it in that garbage truck. So Sterling, about 3:30, the garbage truck woke me up coming about a half a mile down the road. I said, oh yeah? Well, I'm going outside.
Yeah.
I got up and I went outside. And one of the garbage guys, when I saw him, he saw me say, it wasn't us last week. I said, I know it's going to be because you don't do those kind of things. So they took the 2 bins out and took them to the truck and threw it in. So he said, any problem you have, just call environmental health in regards to it and, report it. It's not a matter of reporting that they're not doing their job, but it's garbage. You only pick up garbage once a week. And 99.9% of my garbage are in garbage bags, and you want to tell me they couldn't pick up that bin, that garbage can, and throw the garbage in like how the other rotating guys do when they come?
Yeah, but I think it comes down to, like I said, the individual. We need to be, we need to have a sense of pride and love for ourselves. We need to take, within ourselves, the notion that whatever we're doing, we're going to do it to the best of our ability, because it's going to reflect on us,
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're losing it. Our parents did it. Hopefully we're doing it. Hopefully we're teaching our children to do it. And hopefully that is the example that we're seeing across the board. But sadly, we have to question whether, in fact, that is exactly what is happening. We have to really wonder.
Yeah. Well, when the garbage truck used to come in the morning time, like 6 o'clock, I knew the guys very well, and I was always there to, hand them a treat, some ice water, some Gatorade, whatever. I had that communication with them, and we got along very well. You know what I mean? And just to see that, I had to come out of my bed 3:30 to make sure that my dog was up. It was unbelievable. But I say, you know what? Sometimes you got to stand up. If you don't stand up, you'll fall for anything.
That is it.
And I never fall for anything.
Yeah, Well, thank you for that. And hopefully through that, we'll see that we can speak out, but do so respectfully. We can stand up, but do so responsibly. But the importance that it encourages and nurtures as we do, all right?
That's right.
All right. Thanks very much, huh? All right. With that, let's just quickly pause and take a break. Continue when we return. We have the partnership with the Health Services Authority, so we invite you for a short discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
I'm looking for a new pizza joint with that perfect crust. My car needs a bit of a tune-up, and my pregnant wife needs something from the pharmacy. So I turned to the printed yellow directory, and in an instant, the pizzas are ordered, the oil change is booked, and the thing that I'm not allowed to say out loud has been purchased for my wife. Problem solved. When you need something quick, do yourself a favor. Flip through the printed yellow directory. Stop searching, start finding. Yellow, we know local.
It's time again for the annual Meals on Wheels Orange You Glad Sunset Gala. So, break out your fancy orange outfit, find your little black dress, grab an orange bow tie, or simply show off your orange accessories. A night of elegance not to be missed on May 22nd at the historic Grand Old House, South Church Street. Enjoy cocktails, canopies, a 3-course meal, live and silent auctions, special guests, live entertainment by the John Gray Elite String Ensemble, and the talented Erica Asai. Dance the night away. Tickets are $200 per person, and tables for any size group can be reserved. Book your tables today by emailing info@mealsonwheels.ky or call 345-769-1974. Orange attire is encouraged. See you at sunset at the 8th Annual Meals on Wheels Orange You Glad Sunset Gala. Sponsored by Dolphin Point Club, Ogier, McAlpine, Calderwood, Health City Cayman Islands, and media sponsor Breeze FM and Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us as we invite you to be a part of what we're doing. I can say at the outset that if we continue to look at the education system and we start to appreciate the importance of not just looking at the sciences, but with great respect, as we think of fields that I believe will never go away and should never be undervalued, but should always be promoted and cherished. Education, the knowledge that our teachers teach the future teachers and doers and all as the societies evolve. But the health services sector. So I got two. It's probably one of the continuing times when I'm actually see the wisdom of Miss Norma of putting these cameras in the studio, because she tells me, sadly it's your face got to see, but now and again we'll bring some good people in. So I got two good people, right? What do you think? It's going to be a great day. Yes. If I could, though, perhaps before I do the formal introduction, I got my screen up, cracked as it is, I can still see what's going on. Maybe, Mr. Duval, before we ask you to do the introductions, do we should get Jace to maybe do it first, since he's the young, handsome buck in the room?
Absolutely.
All right, well, normally we would follow protocol and go to the sort of the senior supervising, stallion in the room, but to you, Mr. Wilson, a quick intro to our listeners in your best voice. This is Jason. Pretend that you're on stage. No, that's teasing him. Good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon. And good afternoon to the listening audience. My name is Jace Wilson. I'm one of your local EMTs here with the Health Services Authority, and it is our pleasure today to come and just provide some update as it relates to our upcoming EMS week that is currently ongoing at the moment.
Hey, you're treating him well, Mr. Duval.
I mean, he's a one-man show right there.
We could leave and go for lunch now. Yes, you can take over. Sure. Before I get Mr. Duval to do likewise for us and set the stage for discussion, I think back to the calendar way back when.
Oh, yeah. We're still waiting on that, by the way. We're still waiting on that.
You know what? He's not here, so we'll leave him for now. But these are the memories that you make. This is why I truly value my job as a facilitator, to invite people. I get to learn a lot. I do appreciate the little knowledge. They say little learning is a dangerous thing, but end of the day, you get to a space and a place where you can draw on resources. You can not just be empowered and educated, but you can help to inform, enlighten, and hopefully get people to be encouraged as you nurture them.
Absolutely.
To think that, JS just said it well, one of your EMTs, but that's significant in so many respects, because that could be your life, or for some of us, the life of someone you love even more is at stake. So from that, Mr. Duval, as we talk about EMS week, but a brief intro, if you would, of yourself as well.
Good afternoon, our listening audience across 3 islands and across the world, I'm sure. My name is Stephen Duval. I'm the EMS manager for the Cayman Islands Emergency Medical Service. And it's always a pleasure meeting with you, because we want to discuss and highlight a very valued and important week, which is EMS week for us. I think this year has been extremely challenging, but with challenges come growth. So it would be great to discuss and highlight that more.
And if it's okay, I always believe that as prospective students, as parents of students, as teachers, that we give our children a chance to understand that there's so much to a career. There's so many varied and rewarding careers just in Cayman alone, and with skill sets that you develop as an EMS. You can work in Cayman, you can go to a foreign country like West Bay or Cayman Brac, or you can travel overseas. My invitation will be cut short.
Careful.
I'm just kidding. But it's a skill set that is invaluable. It's one that is literally life-saving,
right?
And it's highly respected. How many people go into a room? Is there talk shows in the room? Is there talk shows in the room? We don't ask that. I wonder why.
Yeah.
But knowing that you have the skill set and the training, maybe we can talk about it. But first, EMS week, maybe share with us. I know there's always a theme with it, but give us the importance, give us the reasons we're celebrating it. Mr. Duval, would that be fine?
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate it's just a week. It should be every day. This week's theme is This is EMS, caring for our communities. The past year, if we were ever invisible, I think has brought us to the forefront. I think it's important to acknowledge all first responders and the definition of first responders, anyone who's in the front line that's making impact. For us in the healthcare community, it includes our physician, nurses, auxiliary staff, but our EMS staff, without question, needs to be acknowledged. I want to take the time to acknowledge and express to the entire EMS team how appreciative and grateful we are for their commitment and service, especially over the past year of COVID-19. I don't think most people would realize the role our team have played from the inception. EMS has been responding to COVID patients while the framework of support has been and continued to be established. So when you think of it globally, when this came on board, we had to be the men and women to get out there. What does COVID look like? And this was even before the framework that CDC provided. But to be able to psychologically and physically respond, to manage and communicate, to create a safe environment, that's been tremendous. And, we continue to this point where EMS played a significant role with training and development of PPE use, antibody testing, PCR testing. So it's not just a response mechanism, but also a support tool as well.
Yeah. And we probably see last year as, I joke and jest and say it's, longest century ever, part of a coping mechanism. But when we think of first responders, and many of us like to watch television, we see, as a fire engine roll out, the ambulances there. We may have lived and worked in jurisdictions where through that whole sort of emergency management system, there's a response with the paramedic, the fireman, the physician, and that overlap. Maybe in the Cayman context we'll get it at some point with there.
Well, you know what? It exists. I think because we're so fluid, I personally think, and it's measurable, that between the DPSC, which is affectionately what we call 911, and the fire and RCIP, we really work in unison on a number of different levels. And there's a lot of communication in the background. So oftentimes EMS respond, as an example, in cardiac arrest, which calls for supportive service fires on scene. They're not just someone to drive. They're a supportive team. We do cross-training and development, so they're highly effective. And the background information that 911 continues to provide really is the glue and the support mechanism. And needless to say, fire is a support and safety mechanism that we depend on. So there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of similarities. Sometimes what you see on TV is just not as visible as it is portrayed.
Yeah, well, on TV is true, right? Sorry, my disdain and contempt aside. No, but I say that because when we look, just as you were saying, I'm thinking, someone's brought into the emergency room. The physicians are there, perhaps as part of ongoing training protocol sensitivity. The physician, she may also travel with the just to get right along at point. But maybe as demand requires or as the circumstance necessitates, that physician goes out to respond then and there. It may be a mindset, it may be a policy shift, it may be that we come to knowledge. At some point I want to ask though, we heard the word paramedic, I said just now, we heard the word EMS. Is there a difference? Are we at risk that we live in Cayman where we're borrowing language from foreign countries like the US and the UK, even from the region? But is it significant? Is it important? Or is it one and the same? I mean, a chocolate isn't just a chocolate.
Yeah. Well, these are historical international references. And what we have tried to meet is a standard, an international global standard. So an EMT is an emergency medical technician, and throughout there's variable stages of development and training. So globally, it is recognized as an emergency medical technician, an advanced EMT, or a paramedical level. So globally, the names are very similar, standards are very similar, and it's no different for us here that we try to pick the very best off, modify it to ensure that is meeting our community needs.
Right. As you said, I'm thinking back to not long ago, like in the UK, there were 3 numbers, whether you call them emergency for the police or for the fire, or for, healthcare. In the US, there was one number, it's 911, not 911. That's a different thing, right? There are those 3 numbers, and it takes you through a much more centralized approach. You don't need to remember. 999 was okay too, but just hit that one number. But you do that with expectation that you get something, and it was, I guess, representative of our demographic, of our tourism sort of profile. But just from that perspective, being advanced in your career, being so committed to your training and development, there is the technical side, but there's also maybe the hospitality, the notion that there's customer care. you're coming out to a scene where people could be frantic.
Yeah, that is true. And that's one of the things, as Mr. Duval mentioned, that's one of the things that our organization stresses to us. Yes, we do have a technical side of EMS where we have to render emergency care and treatment, but there's also, as you said, that customer service. We need to ensure that whomever it is we're going out to, whether it be someone that we're familiar with or a total stranger, we're all taught in training that we need to treat them as if it one of our loved ones, one of our family members. So give them the best treatment, the best care and respect possible.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you want to address what's there, but we don't know. We're panicking, we're frightened, we think we're helpful, but we're hindering.
Absolutely. The other thing, Dwayne, for me not to be remiss not being to mention is that the psychological stressors that is created within our profession is profound. We're charged to respond and address your individual emergency, whatever that may be, and how measurable. But the psychological toll can be accumulative. So we do experience as a small community. So, psychological stress is something that we discuss and we need to address and identify. And it's something that we constantly monitor as well.
Right. Well, I was going to ask of you, and we can, I'll put it on the table now or something. I was going to ask you after the break to talk about that. Not just the stress of the job, but did last year create any, more stress and the different types of stress?
For sure.
How we deal with that. Because oftentimes we don't appreciate it. Not everybody's job is as rewarding and as easy as mine, right? All right. Again, don't do sarcasm. Okay, 949-8037. Let's pause and take a break. When we come back, more Talk Today.
When you're tight on time and budget, but big on flavor, Subway's Meal of the Day hits the spot. Enjoy daily meals on classic sandwiches like tuna, Black Forest ham, meatball marinara, and more. Starting at $6.25 for 6-inch meals and $8.75 for footlongs. You can get Subway's Meal of the Day. Enjoy a different sandwich on a different day for the same price. Mix it up with cookies or chips or waffle fries for the same price. Subway, eat fresh.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
I'm your parent before I'm your friend. The emotional role of a parent is built on love, affection, and esteem. It's an essential part of being a parent, and it's a beautiful thing to behold. But your role as a parent is not just emotional, and your child is not your friend. Indeed, much of the parenting role is functional. For an infant, that means feeding, changing diapers, bathing, and generally providing for the child. For an 8-year-old, it means ensuring homework is done. And for a 15-year-old, it means setting and reinforcing a responsible curfew. This message was brought to you by the National Drug Council and Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks for joining us. And it's truly, for me, an opportunity to allow our parents in particular to say to our children, listen, there are rewarding careers, not just the financial reward, but there is the reward that you're contributing. And I think being in healthcare is such a thing. A lot of demands. Very glad to have the partnership with the Health Services Authority. To talk about EMS Week, EMS manager, Mr. Stephen Duval, J.S. Wilson, truly, they could have brought along, Mr. Was it November? Mr. February?
Yeah. I thought he was Mr. December.
Mr. December?
Mr. December.
You sure?
Yeah, we could have brought him along.
We'll leave that alone for now. Stephen, one of these days, my friend,
I know.
I got to be able to laugh at your organization as much. But I want to share to say that we who have, observed from a distance, recognize that there is, thankfully, a level of confidence that we have in the competence, the technical proficiency. But we also see through the persona, a strong personality of people that have that respect and are respected in return. And that makes the job, hopefully, a little bit more palatable, hopefully. But we're sharing. There isn't, without question, a lot of stress in our jobs. And that strain that we take on, how do we manage it? And the particular things that we can talk to about the mental health, and not just last year in of itself, but then and now going forward.
Absolutely. And I'm going to regress for like 2 seconds.
Mhm.
EMS, I think, is the most interesting, diverse healthcare profession that exists. Across the world, there's always specialties. We have to address all aspects. When we respond, it could be for anything. From a mental wellness, it's important that we talk about this. Again, accumulative stress is something that we have to be mindful and encourage outlets, support mechanisms. But over the past year, you can understand from the inception of COVID, the uncertainties of how this disease is spread, how is it managed. Our team, again, was in the forefront. There is a lot of things we put in place to ensure the safety of fire, police, and our response mechanism. There was a number of things that we actually had to implement because of the psychological stressors. One example was we designed a COVID response team as an example. This was a group of 4 individuals that were very comfortable on how to manage, how to document, and how to communicate in the use of PPE. And the reason we did that was to create an acclimation period where this team would respond, identify, treat, transport, that we were then allowed to run a parallel system. We were still dealing with medical emergencies, but we were able to treat and deal with COVID patients because it does require a bit of more concentration, specialty, and downtime and cleaning. So I think the whole past year, from a psychological perspective, of responding and treating, or service demands have increased. So in general, it's been, we have seen a lot of growth despite the challenges, and I think we're stronger for it.
Yeah, I think that's the fear and the fear of the unknown itself. And I can just, as you said, I'm thinking the ambulance comes in, irrespective of which patient or response.
Right.
There's a protocol to clean so that it's ready to go back out.
Absolutely.
Correct. And that could take, as much time as it takes. It could require certain things. Pressures in and of itself for the job just compounded. Right, Jace?
Yeah. And again, as Mr. Duval said, during that time frame, it was good that we had the organization to lean on because, again, it was something very new for us. I mean, we've had so to speak, the threats of a pandemic before with influenza, but actually something that was here on our shores, it actually shook us to the core. So it was good that we actually had, our managers, senior managers that were all willing to, bend over backwards just to ensure that we were all okay whilst performing our duties.
Okay.
And I think Jace hit a good point. I think it's important to acknowledge or organization in general, our accessibility to the quality and levels of PPE. There wasn't a period of time where we didn't have sufficient to function.
No.
And I think when you look at it globally, we were not in that situation. No. So there's a lot of things that we're grateful for, and I think the unification of being a part of a bigger picture to where we are today, I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and I think that's where, as we look at the community, it comes back to not just the responsiveness and the responsibilities that we have, but the civility, the notion that we will do because it helps all in Sunday. We can disagree about it after, we can argue about what we should have done, but if the outcome is that thing, that bodes well for a healthy, stable society. And hats off to all of us for chipping in and understanding. It's just a matter of how do we analyze and implement for future sort of encounters, as it were.
For sure. There's something you mentioned, Dwayne, earlier about children and young adults looking for professions and experience and riding along. We've had an established ride-along period for many, many years. I think it's important for young people, young Caymanians, who really want to get an appreciation to the field to participate in our ride-along program. It gives them a different perspective. So we welcome and we encourage anyone who's interested to communicate with us. We'll create a schedule where they can participate and see firsthand in how things are. It's important that we provide growth and development and future capacity.
Yeah. Now, in addition to that, but there are many of us who may become sort of, that looks like a good thing, good place to work. We're young, we're still feeling our way. We may have parents, teachers, older siblings even. So for anybody who's listening and they want to look at EMS in particular, other than what you shared right now, what other advice would you have?
There's two avenues. You can contact the department directly or utilize our human resource department. They are, very comprehensive in submitting. They're guiding you in submitting an application online base. They'll have a one-on-one conversation. We are, as a department, is constantly growing. So again, contact us directly through the EMS office, or you can go through www.hca.ky and use our website portal to access the information required. Just to share with you, as our call for service grows, we need to expand and meet the capacity and the needs. For the past few months, we have been working on establishing a parallel service or non-emergency transport service. Too often we have dialysis patients, patients who require wheelchair and other accessible needs for appointment-sensitive, cases. So right now we're in that phase of developing that, where we can meet the expectations and allow our primary care units to respond to true emergencies. So once we get to that point, we'll definitely, hopefully, request another invite and kind of express how the system works.
And I can even, certainly would want to. I can even imagine, as you share that too, that even though this is a scheduled sort of structured and specialist sort of service to dialysis patient, you still need to have a team available, because sadly things can happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
With that, I want to maybe ask in closing: is there anything we, as sort of the public and as the family and friends who may be on the end where the ambulance has been, someone is now arriving, we want to be helpful, but sometimes we don't realize that we're hindering the process, and time is of the essence. Any tips, any advice, any instructions that we could sort of take on board to, at the end of the day, we want the person to get to the hospital as quickly as possible and to be safe. What can we do? Is there anything?
There's a number of things, and I'll share the table with Jace. We have a really dynamic system where there's ease of access. Calling 911 and expressing two specific things. What is the primary complaint? And we find this specifically in more medical emergencies. Identify what the most urgent needs of that loved one, bystander, or individual is. Be patient with 911. A lot of times they'll ask questions and you're thinking they're just erroneous. They're really trying to tabulate as much information to share with us that we can respond effectively, or if there's other support agencies that are required. So again, identify what the true emergency is and be patient with the 911 system. Give them the key information that we can respond effectively. Those are probably the two initial things. The other thing, before I pass it on to Jane, well, I'll not mix it up. I'll pass it on to Jace. There's something else I wanted to mention later on.
I was going to. Okay, Jace.
Just one of the things whenever we respond to a scene, I know many persons within the community, many persons in the public, they want to assist, as you said. But just allow the EMS staff members to do their job. That's all we ask of you. There are many, many times when, it might be a motor vehicle accident, it may be something that's involving a water rescue or something of that sort, that we will in fact request assistance from members of the public. But we ask you just to give us our working space, as we would like to call it. Just allow us to do our work. Again, even if it's a loved one or relative, we share your concerns. We're there doing everything we possibly can. And I wouldn't say the least interference, but just allow us to do our work so we can work as hard as we possibly can for your loved ones, for the individuals there.
And to add to Jay, something that we're very, very passionate about is recording. I ask the public, there's sensitivity to someone who is unconscious, unresponsive, in a very difficult state. Their privacy is extremely important. We ask of them to be conscious and mindful. There's oftentimes very critical, tragic circumstances. And instead of someone saying, how can I help and be effective? How can we create a safe environment? There's unfortunate recording. So we ask for a more inclusive society of days gone by, where we're working together as a team. But I just want to express and ask for their patience and their
this is a
responsibility.
Let us be sensitive towards that.
Yeah.
If I ask, when we call 911, is there sort of protocol? Should we identify ourselves? Should we identify the location? I need an ambulance at 123 should the address be? What would be one of the first things we should share?
Yeah, now one has an all-caller interrogation, and there's key questions they ask within the first 10 seconds, just in case your call is disconnected, and it is specific for that reason. Even if you don't get one's name, at least you have an identified location and an identified event. That at least there's an early response mechanism.
Right.
So now one has a script that is again key questions to ask to get maximum information.
Yeah. Okay, but you share the information. Well, Jace, as we close our discussion, what other points would you want to leave with us?
Well, first and foremost, I would like to say thank you to the listening public for allowing us to come on here and taking in what we have to say. To Radio Cayman, we want to say thank you. EMS Week is something special for us. Like Mr. Duval said, it should be EMS Week every single week of the year. We just want for the listening audience and the viewing audience to know that you have a dedicated EMS team here and that we're working day in, day out the best we can for the people of the Cayman Islands. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Mr. Duval.
Again, I wanted to start and end with appreciating staff. These are the men and women that day in, day out working in sometimes adverse, difficult conditions. So again, thanks for their commitment. I want to thank the stakeholders, 911, RCIP, the fire, and all the auxiliary staff, including our HSA team that receives these patients and create that continuity of care. So it's a huge thanks throughout the community in general.
Well, thanks to you guys. So we see it. If it's okay with you, I would ask us as the motoring public, or just the general public, you see the ambulance coming?
Pull to the left, please.
Yeah, get out of the way.
Yeah, pull to the left.
Safely, but quickly, pull to the left. Get out of the way.
Absolutely.
All right, and keep your dogs tied, keep your gates open if it's coming into your yard. Do everything to make sure your loved one, that person who needs the assistance of the EMS, to be able to get there quickly. Yeah. Is that okay to say that on your behalf?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ease of access is fantastic.
Right. Yeah. Well, gents, continue with the celebrations, enjoy it, and hopefully others will be drawn to serve, as valiantly as you do. Next time, Jace, he can be the face. All right, Mr. Duval.
Always appreciated. Thank you.
All right. To our listeners, we invite you to come back for the remaining half hour. We got something in store for you. What is that? Well, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman,
the voice,
the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm Shanda Gallego with your latest headlines. A 15-year-old student snags the top spot at this year's 2021 National Children's Festival of the Arts Instrumentalists Competition. St. Ignatius Catholic School student Gabrielle Best is the Butterfield Young Musician of the Year, with Greta Ecke, also of St. Ignatius, named runner-up. The competition, held at the Prospect Playhouse, was adjudicated by music educators, including Glenn Anenga. Turning to international news now. Spain has deployed troops after record numbers of migrants entered its enclave of Ceuta from neighboring Morocco. At least 6,000 people reached Ceuta in a single day, Spanish officials say. They say the migrants, who include about 1,500 minors, either swam around the border fences that jut out into the sea or walked across at low tide. Spain's prime minister has vowed to restore order. Spain says it has already sent some 2,700 migrants back, but not the minors. A surfer has died after a suspected shark attack at a popular beach in New South Wales, Australia. The man in his 50s suffered critical injuries to his upper thigh while surfing Tuesday morning, according to NSW police. Emergency services were called out to Tuncurry Beach, around 300 kilometers north of Sydney. The man actually spotted the shark early and tried to warn his friends, the local police superintendent told reporters at the scene. And Amazon is reportedly in talks to buy MGM, the vaunted film studio that was a staple of Hollywood's golden age. A tie-up would give the tech firm a big brand to wield as competition in streaming grows fiercer by the day. MGM's iconic logo of a roaring lion has played before tons of classic films, including the James Bond series, and the studio could be valued at between $7 billion and $10 billion. That, according to the information, which cited a person familiar with the situation. The New York Times and the Financial Times have also reported the talks. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Ray, my good friend, are we ready for another? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. The topic this time is Christopher Columbus, his fourth voyage, the one that's supposed to discover us. What do you know about that?
So they said it was Columbus. They said it was the fourth and final voyage, and Columbus sailed the sea.
Keep going, Dwayne.
1503?
Yeah.
Was it May 10th?
That's what they say.
Christopher Columbus, was it him?
Yeah, except it wasn't Christopher Columbus that noted it. It was his young son, Ferdinand. And it wasn't Grand Cayman. It was most likely, or it sounds like, it was the Sister Islands.
Could have been the Sultan Key or the Bakaski?
No.
All
Sound
right.
like Sister Island. This Friday, Siwa Sain
is a special feature of Talk Today with contributions from the National Museum, a language, history, and culture show on Radio Cayman 89.9 and 93.9 FM.
He had 3 ships. The Niña.
What were they?
The Pinta and the Santa Maria.
Yeah, except it wasn't them that he was on.
What was on a donkey? A raft?
Join us Friday and we'll tell you.
See what I say.
See what I'm saying.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back and thank you for joining us as we invite you to be a part of our remaining program here for Open Line. As we close it out in the next 22 minutes and thereabouts, we invite you to share your thoughts with us. Hey, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. What's on your mind? What is important to you? What are you thinking as you look around, perhaps the various media outlets and seeing what is unfolding globally? What thoughts would you like to share with us? Anything springs to mind? Anything of great concern? Is it, well, as you would look at it and say, well, it's as expected. You know, the world isn't getting any better. Well, any thoughts in relation to the implications for us here in Cayman? 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Or equally, you can choose to WhatsApp 925-3261. Now, as you heard the promo this Friday coming up, Ray Banker is at it again. He's spent the last month, well, a little bit more actually, because when he does one show, we're doing multiple bits and pieces, and then we take the ensuing month to focus on that. That one, see what I'm saying, show that transpires on a monthly basis requires a whole lot more effort and concentration and activity than perhaps all the other shows for the remaining month. It's because we want to do it well, we want to get it right, but we also recognize a lot of the information isn't necessarily as available, accessible, and certainly sometimes presents a great challenge. So we are very, very grateful to the National Archive in particular for the access that they allow, for their guidance and instruction and nurturing and the like. But it also shows how difficult it is sometimes to be able to get information. And as we talk about it, well, maybe you will not only learn, but we're inviting you to contribute so that we can learn. Maybe there are things we didn't know, things we didn't realize we knew, things we knew and we've forgotten, or things that we've, didn't know it was like that. I always thought it was like this. Well, Friday for the See What I'm Saying with Ray, we'll get it there. Now, in the meantime, share with us 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, and I'll share this with you from two perspectives. One, the discussion that I had sort of leading up to today's show relative to the importance of valuing who we are, what we are, and where we are. And two, the notion that it perhaps behooves us, is incumbent upon us to honestly and openly give as much as we can so that it improves our lot now, but makes hopefully a profound contribution to improve the lot of those that will come after. We've always been told that it's important to, at the very least, if we can't improve space, at least we don't make it any worse, and that we're building a future for generations to come. Now, There are many who have been asking the question relative to the pace and scope of our development. Are we seriously at risk of not just damaging and destroying our physical environment, but displacing our people as we've displaced many of the animals, the birds and the like, as we've filled in swamps and mangroves, as we've destroyed the wetlands, because they always seem just a fancy word of calling it, or we have torn down trees. What consequences? Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Yo, Mr. Green.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Yes, sir.
I hope you're well.
You was alright, though?
Very thankful, man. Honestly, very blessed and truly thankful.
Yes, I'm glad they had the rain on the weekend.
Yeah, it did a lot of good.
Trying to get some pineapples.
Wow. I must commend you, man. You're a man that not only respects, nature and the earth and the soil, but you invest heavily in keeping it so that it can continue to produce, for us now and for us to come. And I really, really take my hat off to you and people like you who have such a fervent desire to grow what we eat, to eat what we grow, but to show the importance of it, from all aspects.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And I got to give my praises to the ones that teach me this.
Yes, yes.
The ones that tell me, say, yo, sit down, listen, watch what I'm doing.
Yeah, man. I think that's where we're really, really losing a lot of it. Not just the connections to each other and the importance of passing down good practices, but the notion that we're putting ourselves at great risk. Hopefully our government will, not just this one and the one thereafter, continue to show a great health, the respect for our health and well-being through agriculture, through things like making sure that our environmental sort of approach, the air quality, to the farming, to the harvesting, to our lifestyle, that is about a true sense of respect for health.
And just I go and tell you, I say, just how you see the virus come out like that, it can go to your food system too, you understand?
Yeah, man.
Things where you eat, it can spread to that too. So, it's best that you watch what you eat.
Yeah. Well, we've seen, through history, whether we read it from the biblical perspective of locusts and plagues, or we're seeing it from issues where crops, because of some pestilence or some, a disease that has attacked a crop, irrespective of how it may have happened, creating great hardship for the farmers, creating a shortage on the market and prices go up, or even decimating some economies or certain sectors. Yeah. So you're right, we need to be more mindful of what is happening to our crops and our, little farmlands, as it were.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah. One thing of interest for you and the listeners, right, is, and especially the man in the studio, he will love this. Go and watch how they made corn, who made corn, how they get, how you got corn the way it is today. And you'll see that it didn't take no whole heap of technology. It just took time and watching what you're doing. You understand? And how they got it, what you say, the pestilence. They got it that they made the corn, put out a message to call in the hornets to come and get rid of the pestilence off the corn. This is thousands and thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago, they did that. So one thing I got, I would almost lose my track of mine now. Is Gaza and Israel. I want to give my condolences to everybody down in Gaza and tell them, say, boy, a lot of people around the world praying for honor. It's no call for what's going on. Is a cat versus a mouse. Israel versus Gaza, like that is sad. That's sad. Yeah. And if it doesn't show clearly today now, when you ask the question, if we equal or not equal, that's a true demonstration of showing the inequality of what goes on. You understand? Showing that if you're not a part of something, you can't be a part of the whole thing. That's not right down, especially on a in a situation that they are like that.
Yeah, we have to wonder sometimes where the international media in particular, but even the governments that supposedly are more democratic or more civilized or what have you, to what extent, from a global perspective, they're able to work together, they're willing to work together. Think of hunger and homelessness. Think of the way people are still sold into slavery and the notion that we turn a blind eye to it, where peoples are being displaced and almost just extinguished. We ignore it for some reason. We don't seem to report it nor draw attention nor address it. From the Rohingya to just the challenges that may be plaguing certain communities in otherwise heavily developed and industrialized nations. I seem to think that we're only concerned about the thing that affects us. We're not concerned about it until it does.
And I wonder where they learn that from.
One has to wonder. But anyway, as I listen to you, I mean, maybe you can share if you want.
No, that was one of the things that were mainly on my mind today. How I was watching the children getting bombed and this and that. That's sad, man. And then Israel claiming to be a God nation or the holy nation. Understand? I think one of the holy things you would read is don't disturb thy neighbor.
But then,
not that here.
Yeah, man. As you share that, we're seeing the increasing conflict amongst people, even perhaps in our own space. How people are quick to disagree on something without even understanding why they're disagreeing, and instead of trying to find common ground, even if they want, both to get to the finish line, to accept that there may be a different path. One may be faster, more efficient, but one may be better now and for the long term. It may be a cost consideration, but if they don't expect to work through the differences and adopt the notion that to the victor go the spoils, the notion that the person with the biggest stick, the most powerful gun, or the pen to write the biggest check, if that's the measure of who wins, then we have to wonder, is the bullying more than on the schoolyard or in the cyberspace?
You're correct. In one of the things, they got to try to pay attention, and I mean, in all of us, understand that if you're not willing to accept that you're going to get a draw, like say you're playing the game, if you're not willing to accept that you're going to get a draw, then what you playing the game for? What you invented the game for if it's not going to be no draws in it?
Yeah.
It have to be that, Mr. Dwayne, me and you play football or whatever. I got one, you got one. Me and you tired out to the fullest. We're not gonna say let's call it a draw. No, we're gonna go till we dead. That kind of mentality now, right? I don't teach them that. If it's a draw, it's a draw.
Yeah, you think about it, right? 1 point, or do you want all three? It's the idea that, as you said, I was thinking football, but checkers, you can get to a place where it is. In dominoes, the game is blocked. Now, instead of saying that we go to count. So there has to be a notion, as you shared, that there's a healthy respect for the game and the participation as opposed to just, the winner takes all.
Yeah, I mean, so you're going to say the higher powers, the ones that know so much, they never experience a draw, or they don't know how to call a draw. So that means now that when it comes to equality and them kind of things, I should never try to push for that. I should never even try to even imagine that. I supposed to imagine that I'm on top and I'm the one going to win all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we look at when the big nations decided to invest so heavily, resources, money included, in building armaments, and they could get the most powerful missiles. The notion that they came up with an acronym, it was mad indeed. Mutual assured destruction, a very mad concept. I got a big, high-powered bomb of some sort. You have an equal one. So because of that, one nation won't launch it against the other, knowing that there's be retaliation. It is sort of a mad concept to even employ. So much so that they gave it the right acronym. If that is, as you shared, the approach that we're going to have as a deterrent, then maybe the participation in the game, because we don't want the draw, pushes us to adopt that mentality. Winner takes all.
Winner takes all. And if anybody read history, everybody know that evil does not win. And a bad mind doesn't win. It always loses. They did not learn all up to these years and years and years and years ago. They didn't learn that you can't win.
But isn't that the sort of the mindset though, that we have, that in the short term we only see what has transpired? We see the evil doer in the short term seemingly enjoying a level of success and is celebrated, but it doesn't win out in the long term. In the short term, we're exercising, eating healthy, making a lifestyle change, but we're not seeing the transformation. We expect that what may have taken years of a bad habit and lifestyle practices to put us into the weight class that we're into that uncomfortable space. We expect that overnight, one day or 1 week or 1 month or even 1 year of changing decades of bad practice, we expect to see an immediate result. If the short term is the only indicator, maybe we're not in it for the long term. We don't understand the importance of that service and sacrifice.
I wonder who teaches them the short term. I wonder who teaches them that you only got this time to live, so live it up to the fullest. Meaning hurt or do whatever you can to be happy. That would make sense. But to the richest, I just want to ask them how much nights that they sit down in that bed or they sit down at the dinner table and nobody around them. Not even the Google, the talker or whatever. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The maid. Yeah. Not even the maid wants to stay around you. You got to pay her extra hours to come stay around you. How lonely and sad your life is because you cross everybody to get where you is. Nobody don't want nothing to deal with you because they're afraid if they touch you, they might catch a disease.
Well, you see, that's the problem, right? We no longer, I was going to say sometimes we no longer have that level of respect for others, but I think we don't have the respect for self. And if you don't respect yourself, then how can you, truly respect or likewise love others as well, right?
Right. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know where you come from, if you don't know who you're supposed to be, how you can respect that? How can you even dream about having respect for that? You can see that people that are black turning white. You can see people that got nappy hair trying to turn it straight. You can see everybody that don't respect their culture, don't respect where they come from, and they're trying to get somewhere. And when they get to that somewhere, that place that they think they're supposed to be, they can see that they don't fit in. No matter what, they just can't fit in. That bleaching skin, that hair cream, that weave, whatever it is. And I'm not just talking about those people. I'm talking about people that go and they have a specific accent, the way they come from, right? But when they get around certain people, that accent gone. Even though they know they still don't fit in, they still tries. Still tries, and that's the part that I don't get. Like me, I can't change the way I talk. Any way I is, I can't change anything like that. People look at me and they say, "Boy, you don't change." I say, "That's right. I don't have nothing to change. I love the way I am. I grew up, I woke up, and I know that this is who I am. This is where I'm supposed to be."
Yeah, man.
Now getting everybody to get that mentality. You know how hard that is. Plus, when your parents don't even have time for you. You're a little boy, right? You don't have no time. You don't got no time for nothing. You know what they got to do? They got to put you in front of TV or an iPad or something, and then that is going to show you or try to show you who you're supposed to be. You're so far from that. You're so far and so good And so better than that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know where you come from. They don't know that you come from miles of slavery on your back. They don't know that people had to go and, eat soda crabs for you to make it. People had to go and, chase down boats for you to make it to come here. And you think now that you could just live it once and then go on? No, man. I want to know who's teaching them this.
Well, that's the thing.
That story about them in the school where they were talking about sex and things. Let me just ask you a question. Let's imagine if they were asking how big a spliff's supposed to be. Let's imagine that and wonder what a retaliation or the reaction would be. It would be handcuffs.
Well, it is.
So that's why you got them talking about sex.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think people maybe don't appreciate the true value, of what it is, to give. They just believe in taking. Yeah. But thank you for what you do, man, and certainly, keep up so that people understand it.
Mr. Dwayne, I won't say it. You know what I mean? Every time I call in, it tells me everything I need to know and ask these questions. That when I done with this call now, I go and figure out more about what you tell me. You understand? And then the people inside the studio room, it mightn't be, like a long talk, but let me tell you something. Them people up inside it, they have the most respect and the most manners for anybody that calls into the radio. I believe, you should free that glass door and have them all inside the same, same studio with each other. I think I'll give him a little bell or something, be like, no, that's wrong, or you understand? I don't know, like, you got involved them inside it, because then they make you get what you're supposed to get too, you understand?
I think if we start to give more, right, start to have a respect for others, start to appreciate that, there is no one with a blueprint on intelligence. There is no one thing that's the panacea or the silver bullet or whatever, however we term it. That it takes a collective effort. And sometimes the individual may have to give more, do more, but not to be taken advantage of, not necessarily to be celebrated and held in reverence, but because everybody has a role to play, and sometimes you're pushing the car when it's broken down. Sometimes you have to steer it because somebody else can push but can't steer, So it's all about respect for self,
Teamwork on an island so small, we shouldn't be this divided.
Yeah, man.
Simple as that. Thank you very much, Mr. Green. Thank you for everybody. Thank you all the listeners. All that. Thank you very much. And the EMS that were on there, remember I had to deal with them so much times, and I thank them dealing with me because I'm hard to deal with. Thank you all them. I want to give my greatest praises to them. Thank you very much.
Well, certainly appreciate you extending the gratitude, man. I think they deserve it. So thank you too for doing that. Talk to you soon, all right? All right, last one. Well, let's pause, maybe a final quick break, and then we'll take it from there. Stay tuned.
Busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. Please be advised that the pension contribution holiday has been extended until 30th of June 2021. Employers and plan members should ensure arrangements are in place for salary deductions and remittance following this date. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan, keeping you informed. For further information, visit chamberpensions.ky, and for information as it happens, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Email admin@pensions.ky or call 745-7630. We're here for you.
Work
Jobs Cayman has a new look. Registered users can now experience a more user-friendly platform, allowing for easier registration and posting of job ads. To see and experience the new look today, visit www.work.ky. That's WORC.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for your company. Thanks for your time, your counsel, and certainly, thanks for being here. Let's take one final call. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
Afternoon. How are you today?
Not bad yourself, thank God.
Amen, man. Blessed and thankfully.
You have guests or just my
right now, you have my full undivided attention.
Oh well, that sounds so good. I need it right now.
You got it.
I have a comment to make. Over the weekend, I overheard a few expats having a conversation about living in the Cayman Islands. I have one little message and I'm sure that a lot of us as Caymanians will probably be on the same page. They were complaining that the people in Cayman is so biased. The cost of living is the highest in the world. Cayman is not as friendly as it used to be. The whole works, and where they come from, things are a lot cheaper and this thing, next thing. But I got one little message to send to those people that do not appreciate. COVID is in Cayman, or COVID has reset Cayman on a whole. We're not stopped, but thank God we're still alive. We're not starving. Thank God that God has made a way for us, and our borders should open when it's safe for us to open. What I will tell those people that if they have a problem with the cost of living in Cayman because it's too expensive and it's too this and this next thing, they don't have a flight going every day out of Grand Cayman or out of Cayman Brac or wherever it may be, but we have flights leaving out here. So what they could do is do themselves a favor and go, because we, unlike Cayman has nowhere else to go, Caymanians has nowhere else to go, we are home and we have to bear the blood of there. This is the best treatment. There's thousands of expats that are here that does not even have any work, and yet they are still in the Cayman Islands enjoying what should be left for the people that appreciate being in the Cayman is. And so if they have a problem with that, they can all go home. I'm sure they all came from somewhere, and if they don't want to go back to their country, they can go to the next man's country that want them. And I have no barking bells behind that one. Thank you.
All right. And with that, as I listen to you, thanks for calling. It brings me back to my constant sort of appeal more than ever in the last year or thereabouts, that let's find ways to unify our efforts, our hands and our hearts, and let's find ways to work collectively together. It doesn't mean that we all pass the finish line at the same time, but let's make sure that we all cross the finish line. There are those who come out front and are unused and unaccustomed to the feeling that they may have because they're out front. They've made it, cross the finish line first. Let them not feel lonely. Let's draw alongside them and nurture, support, and encourage. But when we get to that finish line, let that not be the end in of itself, and let's not get so full of ourselves that we fail to appreciate that we now need to run another race faster and better as we bring others closer together. It is, I think, an interesting time in human history. It's an important time in our own lives, and it's incumbent on all of us to work hand in glove to make it that much better. I always enjoy Billy Joel's music. He's truly a storyteller, and there's a song that we'll play now in the program called A Matter of Trust. Lyrics are meaningful. The song certainly inspires.